have to thank Representative Jones and Senator Tarr for their efforts in assuring that we got a share of that sale. Additionally, we received $1,218,000 from the 40R project. Now, it's the Lincoln Properties, the apartments that are being built at the Berry Center. Under 40R, we were entitled to $3,000 per living unit, 406 units. It resulted in that money. Last October, town meeting approved the creation of a debt stabilization fund, which the board said they would put the Berry money in to help fund future debt. And now, in other words, to allow us to leverage purchasing of funding of capital projects. And tonight, I think it's Article 4, we will be transferring the $499 and the $1.2 million into the debt stabilization fund. When you take that away, we end up with a budget surplus of $229,045 of what would be normal free cash. Now we look at available funding. We have free cash. We also have, several years ago, we put money together in a fund. This was money that we got for services for inspections and those types of fees for the Berry Center. And we put it into a fund which was in the vicinity of $450, close to $500,000 to fund those additional services that were required for this very large project. It turns out, as a result of the efforts of our town employees and Mr. Hanlon, our Public Works Director, we didn't spend nearly as much money as we had anticipated, leaving a surplus of $325,000, which we're making available to fund some of the projects brought forth to you this evening. We also had a surplus from the vocational school. The initial money that we funded for this year's budget was in excess by $12,564. And then we have some Medicare Part D reimbursement that we received of $98,196, leaving a total of $664,805 of available funds for activities and motions this evening. So, on our priorities are for Article 2, 3, and 6. But we're only talking about Article 2. For snow and ice, the deficit is $341,778, and it's going to be funded from this surplus amount of money. Thank you.
For the Finance Committee, Mr. Mastacusa.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends unanimously. This, the funding source was well explained by Mr. Messeri. This is a common occurrence here with snow and ice. We generally have the flexibility to under budget snow and ice just because it's hard to predict the weather and how much a season is going to cost us. We always pay this bill as a prior year bill at the October town meeting, so this is a common occurrence.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Article 3. Mr. Vino.
Mr. Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $87,059.10 and raise and appropriate the sum of $62,940.90 to line 5 reserve fund under Article 14 of the April 2008 town meeting for under budgeted increase in school and municipal fuel and utility costs for fiscal year 2009 as specified in Article 3 as printed in the warrant.
We have the motion. Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation? Mr. Vino.
The Board of Selectmen unanimously recommend.
the Finance Committee. Mrs. Herbert.
2 years ago, we had an energy reserve fund for the town and municipal government, and we used a chunk of it. The remaining money went into free cash at the end of the year. This year, we're asking for the same thing. While the towns did increase their energy budgets to the tune of approximately 3%, in the current world of things, it's not 100% clear that that's going to come close to covering. The town and the schools are very cognizant of the fact that it's costing us a whole lot more to heat and light places and to drive cars and police cars, and are doing their very best to keep their costs down. But we feel it's only reasonable to have this energy reserve fund available. We anticipate that departments will spend down their energy lines before coming to the Finance Committee for a transfer.
Further discussion? Mr. Jervy. The motion is to transfer from free cash the sum of $87,059.10 and raise and appropriate the sum of $62,940.90 to line 5 reserve fund under Article 14 of the April 2008 town meeting for unbudgeted increases in school and municipal fuel and utility costs for fiscal year 2009. Any other questions? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 4, Mr. Messeri.
Mr. Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $1,717,000 to the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund established under Article 5 of the October 2007 town meeting, as specified in Article 4 as printed in the warrant.
Mr. Messeri for a brief presentation.
Well, as I said a little earlier, excuse me 1 second. We created a debt stabilization fund back last October, and the initial funding for that fund was $404,250, again, came from the Berry project. Last year, in other words, in this existing 2009 budget, we funded $103,000 from the debt stabilization fund to cap our debt at a level so that we would allow we wouldn't increase the amount of money taken into debt service, and that money would then be available to fund general government and school budgets. Additionally, as a one-time, the board voted to help close the budget gap we had last year. We took $150,000 from that Berry money and we used it in operating budgets, which left the current balance of $151,000. By transferring the $1,717,000, we'll have a balance of $1,868,000 this evening. Now, if you look at what this does, as you can see, we have a debt ceiling of $921,285. This kind of was established last October. What this means is that any amount of debt exceeding that would be funded from the debt stabilization fund, and the intent was if the debt number was less than, we would then put money back into the debt stabilization fund. So we would kind of be able to provide a uniform amount of money budgeted each year for debt. This is non-exempt debt. It doesn't include override debt for schools and large projects. So this here is the $103,000 for fiscal 209 budget. Now this large jump here, a piece of it was voted in April, and it was related primarily to the purchasing of the Eisenhower settlements and then additional bonding that we did. And tonight, there's a small amount of money, I shouldn't say a small amount, it's a fairly large amount of money that you'll be asked to approve, which will be bonded and will be funded to this amount, which can be covered by the debt stabilization fund. So if you look at the figures, if the debt ceiling is kept at $921,000 as we go forward, we would be taking from last year $103,000 to keep the debt ceiling flat. For 2010 budget, it includes the actions of tonight's capital expenditures, is $505,000. 2011, to fund that debt without increasing additional debt, of course, it would be $352,000. In 2012, it would be $230,000. In 2013, it would be $93,000, and then it actually goes in the other direction. And the balance in the debt stabilization fund, as you can see down on the bottom line here, as of this evening, action, if this article is approved, it'll be $1,868,000, and it will decline to $686,000, maintaining a debt ceiling of the $918,000 or $930,000.
Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation? Mr. Messeri.
Yes. The Board of Selectmen recommends.
For the Finance Committee, Mr. Kirby.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of this. We feel it's an appropriate use of one-time revenue derived from the sale of the properties. We feel it's important not to have these dollars utilized for ongoing recurring operating expenses. So this is a very prudent course of action for the town to take.
Okay, this requires a 2/3 vote. Discussion.
My name again is James Perkins. My question is, by transferring this money, which is like, I would view it as a windfall, by transferring it to our operating budget this year, aren't we setting a precedent that once this money runs out, we're going to be having expenses that we have accumulated over this year, and with the expectation that we have to generate additional funds in the future in order to meet these new expectations? That, to me, seems like if this is a debt stabilization, that we're not really stabilizing. In other words, we are over our budget, and so we have to dip into that fund in order to cover the excess expenditures of last year. The other question regarding this, of course, is that I don't understand why the snow removal fund is always under budgeted. To me, it would seem to be wise in order to budget that in excess of what we have been spending, because we know that God is going to send us some more of this snow during the course of the year. And of course, if we want it removed, we have to be prepared for it. So it seems to me that we don't actually have a budget here, that we're transferring funds from here to there to something else. And so I see this as becoming a big burden that is going to be have to be funded at some point in the future. And I can tell you another 2.5 proposition it ain't going to work. So that's my recommendation.